Hello everyone, this is Andrew with Novus Computers and novuscomputers.com, and today we are going to be doing another Windows 10 Basics video. This is part of our Computing 101 video series, and today we are going to be looking at window management in Windows 10. Window management is something that helps you keep your everyday tasks and helps make those things a little bit easier, helps keep things going a little bit more smoothly, and helps you be a little bit more efficient in your day-to-day work. So without further ado, let's get to it. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is a window management feature called LeftRight Align or LeftRight Snap. And this feature was available all the way back in Windows 7. It was also available in Windows 8, and it has since been upgraded a little bit in Windows 10. So what I mean by left-right align is, let's say I have a couple of file browser windows here. And we'll just go ahead and open these up, maybe make them a little bit larger so we can actually see them. All right. Now let's say that I'm in my documents folder, and then I have another folder here, say my downloads folder, for instance. I want to move this file into this folder. Well, I could click and drag and do that, but it wouldn't be a lot easier if I could have this window fill up exactly one half of the screen and this window fill up the same. It makes things a lot easier to see and a little bit easier to drag and drop. These windows are kind of large and kind of in the way of each other, so they're not quite as easy to, utilize right now. Well, actually doing this is very, very simple, and I can utilize left-right snap or left-right align to be able to do this. Now, to activate this feature, all I have to do is simply left-click in this blank space up here. This is known as the window header, or the title bar, as it was in previous versions of Windows. If you left-click up here, I can simply drag the window over to the very left or right, in this case, edge of the screen. And when I say the left or right edge, I mean dragging it to the point where the mouse pointer is actually on the edge of the screen. And as I do this, you can see that now there's kind of a shadowing effect over one half of the screen here. And if I release the mouse button, you'll see that this now fills up exactly one half of my screen. As an added bonus in Windows 10, it also will give me any open windows that I have in this section. So all I have to do is left click on it, and now it will fill up the other half of the screen. So now all I have to do is simply click and drag, and voila, file transfer is made easy. This is also extremely useful for situations where if you have, say, a digital camera or a cellular phone that, takes pictures, you can actually drag and drop your photos and everything into, say, your pictures folder in a much more easily and organized fashion. Another thing this is extremely useful for is if you are doing, say, research on something. I'll give you an example here. And let's say that I'm typing up a research paper, and over here is going to be an internet browser. Let's say I'm researching trains or something. What I can do now is I can simply drag this over to the left, let it fill up a half of my screen, and then click on this window here, and it will fill up the other half. I can now type away at whatever, paper I'm working on, whether it be a news article or a book report, anything, and I can have my research window open over here. And I'm going to touch on a new feature in Windows 10, and that is inactive window scrolling. Now, that sounds like a bit of a technical feature, but it's actually a very simple one and also a very cool one. In previous versions of Windows, in order to get this window to scroll up and down, I'd have to make sure I click this window, somewhere inside of it, whether that be up here in the title bar or over in a blank space. I'd click it, and then I could scroll using my scroll wheel or touchpad. Now in Windows 10, I don't have to do that. If I want to scroll in this window, all I have to do is put the mouse in it. I have not clicked in this window yet. This is still my active window here, this notepad is. And all I have to do is just move my mouse over this window, and as you can see, I can scroll. And to show you that this is not the active window, I'm still typing over here. I'm just randomly typing in some characters so that everybody can see, but as you can see, I'm still typing away over here. I can't, there's no reason why I need to actually click in this window to do anything. So this is extremely useful for situations where if you're doing a research article or something and you need to be able to scroll down a little bit to read some more information, but yet you don't want to click away because, if you click away, then you click back, then you might not be in the same spot that you were previously, and then you have to scroll down or find, where you actually want to start typing and then go from there. So it's a really, really handy way of doing this, and it helps save just a little bit of time while you're doing things, that normally would require you to click from one to the window to the next and go back and forth. So now that we've covered left-right align or left-right snap, we're going to go into what is known as quad view. Now, quad view is something that is a little bit of a extrapolation of left-right snap. And for an example, I'm going to bring up a couple more windows here. And maybe we'll bring up a maps window as well, just to keep things kind of varied. So now, if I want, say, 4 windows on my screen at the same time, if I drag this window over here, and again, this is just left click up in the window area here, up in the window header. If I drag it over to the left or to the right, you'll see it fills up half the screen. However, if I drag it up into the corner and let go, you'll see the shadowing effect changes again. It now fills up 1/4 of my screen. And I can continue doing this with my remaining windows. And once I get to the last section or the last quarter of the screen, you'll see that Windows gives me my remaining 2 windows, so I can click whichever one I want and have it fill up the last remaining quarter. So this is what is known as quad view, and can be very useful if you have a larger display or a higher resolution screen, especially for instances where, say, you need to be watching a lot of information at once. Say you're a stockbroker and you need to have several different websites open all at the same time. A lot of times I know stockbrokers will have 4 windows open and still be able to utilize stuff like this. So if you have a lot of information that you need to be looking at all at the same time, or if you're really doing some, major research and you want to have different things open all at the same time, this is another quick and easy way to arrange windows. Now, this is also kind of a hybrid mode that, just because I have 4 windows up here does not mean I have to have, 4 windows open all the time. Instead, if I want to, say, have this take up half the screen, while these 2 stand over here, I just click and drag this over to the left edge of the screen, and as you can see, it filled up half the screen, while these windows over here are each filling up 1/4 of the screen. So again, if you're doing, whether it be research or, anything, you can actually fill up half the screen and, continue having 2 windows over here, 1 window over here. You can mix and match however you wish. So now that we've covered window snapping and alignment, let's go ahead and look into actually resizing windows and enlarging, shrinking them, so on and so forth. So the first one we'll look at is enlarging windows. Now, as you could probably have seen that I was doing earlier in the video, if you bring your mouse up along the edge here on any corner of the window, I can rearrange how large this window actually is. If I go into a corner, and you'll see how it kind of changes to a 45-degree type arrow, I can actually go both ways. This has been available for a very, very long time. This has been available on Windows XP, Windows 2000, long, long time. What's also been around for a very long time are these 2 buttons up here, the enlarge and this minimize button. These have been around for a very long time as well, and their functions are very, very simple. If I want to make this window take up my entire screen, I simply click the maximize button, and if I click it again, it brings it back down to its previous size. Likewise, the minimize button will shrink this window down here into the taskbar, which I can then click on the icon and it will restore it back to its previous size. In Windows 7, 8, and 10, however, there are a couple other ways to be able to enlarge and shrink windows. So we'll start with enlarging. And if I want to enlarge this window, I can click this button. However, there's a couple other ways I can do this. If I want to, say, click and drag this window, and I can drag it up to the top edge of the screen and release, this will also cause the window to take up the entire screen. If I simply click and drag away, as you can see, it now shrinks it back down to where it was previously, or the previous size. Another way to do this is simply double left clicking anywhere up in this window header area. So if I double left click right here, you'll see that it fills up the entire screen. If I double click again, it takes us back to its original size. So this is just a couple ways of being able to make the window take up, full screen, or, back to its normal original size, or an adjustable size where you can, make it however large you want. Another cool trick is if you want to make it take up the entire height of the screen, but not the entire width, you can simply click and drag from the top edge here and drag all the way up to the top. And if you release, you'll see that the bottom now adjusts to just above the taskbar, this taking up the entire height of my screen. If I double click up on the header, it will return to its previous size. So now that we've looked at a way to enlarge windows, let's take a look at a way to minimize some windows. Now we all know that clicking this button will minimize this particular window, which is fine. But let's say I want to minimize all of these windows back here. This maps window, this edge window, all of the rest of these windows. Well, there's a very simple way to do this. If I simply left click and drag this window, I just need to shake it back and forth a little bit. So I'm still holding the left mouse button down, and if I do this, you'll see that immediately all of the other windows have now shrunk down to the taskbar. They're all still there, and if I want to click on one, I can bring it back up as needed. However, if I want to bring them all back up, let's say, for instance, I was in a file explorer and I needed to drag an item to my desktop or something. I've done that now, and now I want to bring those windows back up. If I left click and shake this window again, you can see that all of the remaining windows are now back to where they were previously, all in their same size and their same location. So let's say now that, say I'm in quad view, I want to open up another application on my desktop. I can't do this right now because obviously I can't see my desktop. So what if I wanted a way to shrink back all of the windows that, all of these windows, so I can just see my desktop? Well, starting in Windows 7, there is actually a button here to do this, and it's actually located here to the right of the date and time. It's a little bit difficult to see in Windows 10 and Windows 8. Windows 7, it's a little bit more visible, but it's right along the very right-hand edge of the screen here. And if I simply left-click on this little button, you'll see that now every window that was open is now shrunk down here onto the desktop. If I click the button again, everything returns back to where it was previously. This is a very handy way of being able to access, items on your desktop, whether they be files or programs, just about anything, and then being able to restore your windows to where they were. So now that we've covered enlarging and shrinking, we're just about wrapped up here. I'm going to cover one more neat feature that is brand new for Windows 10, and that is MultiDesktop. Now, before we get to MultiDesktop, I'm going to quickly cover one more little item, which is called Task View. Previously, the ability to switch between windows, you could press Alt-Tab, which would allow you to do this. It would bring up this screen, and you could cycle between whichever windows you wanted to have available. Task View is a bit new to Windows 10, and it is simply this button down here. And if you click this button, you'll see that all of these windows now get arranged in a nice, neat little order, and I can just click on the one that I want, and you can see it brings it to the forefront. It is now the active window. So if I click it again, I can click another one, and it brings up this window. If I say want to bring up the maps, I click it, it's right there. It doesn't resize windows or anything, it just brings them to the foreground and makes that the active window. If you'll notice, however, in spite of all of these items here, there's one more button down here in the corner called New Desktop. And To give you an example, let's say that this was a working project right here. I'm doing a research paper on trains, and somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, could you look something up for me? Whether that be, something on the internet or for transferring files, anything." And you say, "Yeah, okay. Well, I've got all my windows and everything exactly where I want them and exactly how I want them, and I don't really want to, mess this workspace up. So what I can do is I can come down here into Task View, and if I click this New Desktop button, you'll see that all of those windows have disappeared now. And instead, I now have a pair of desktops down here. Now I have Desktop 1 and Desktop 2. If I click on Desktop 1, as you can see, all my windows are here exactly where they need to be. If I come back to Task View and come here to Desktop 2, you can see I now have a perfectly clean slate to work with. I can open up new internet browsers, whether they be Edge, whether they be Firefox, Chrome, whatever. I can open up new file browsers. I can open up pretty much any other application or anything that I need or want and be able to use those. And when I'm done with them, I simply can close them out, click my Task View button, and switch back to the desktop that I was actually working on. Another handy little feature is you can close these desktops out simply by clicking the X above that desktop. Before I get too carried away, I'm going to also tell you that if you have any windows open currently in a desktop, so for instance, if I have these two windows open and I want to close this desktop out, and I do so, it will move those windows. As you can see, it moves these windows over into your currently active desktop. So if you don't want these windows to be moved, you'll want to make sure that you close them out prior to closing out that desktop. As you can see, those windows are now sitting in my workspace. So again, multi-desktop and task view are some handy ways to be able to, navigate both your windows as well as create brand new workspaces that you don't have to, clutter up what you were doing to do something else. And you can make about as many workspaces as you want. I don't know what the official limit is, but as you can see, I've got 9 here right now, which is probably far and away more than most people are ever going to use. But it is an extremely handy tool to be able to jump from one desktop to the next and not clutter up an entire workspace with 3 or 4 projects all at the same time. So that will just about do it for window management. Again, we've just to kind of recap a little bit, we've covered left-right alignment, which again is just left-clicking the window header and dragging it either to the left or the right side of the screen. And as you can see, we can put windows side by side. We also covered quad view, which can also be used to bring a window into just a quarter of the screen. And that can also be used, as a hybrid way, as you can see here. So I have, this maps window is covering up exactly 1/2 of the screen. These two windows over here are each covering up 1/4 of the screen. We've covered enlarge and shrink and many, many different ways you can do that, whether that be clicking the buttons over here, whether that be double clicking the window header up here, which is my personal favorite and the one I use much more than the others. We can also click and drag up to the top of the screen and use that to enlarge our window, or drag away and that will return it to its normal size, as well as shaking a window to remove windows that were behind it so that it's only this window has the focus. And we've also covered the shrink all button down here in the lower right corner just next to the clock, the time and date. And that will shrink all your windows down, so then you can also bring them back up by clicking that same button again. We've also covered task view as well as multi-desktop, which again is a very useful utility for being able to, run multiple projects without cluttering up your screen too terrible much. So that will do it for window management. Again, this has been Andrew with Novus Computers and novuscomputers.com. That web address is novus dash as in a hyphen or a minus sign, the word computers.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at Novus Computers, which that one's all one word. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below in the video. Also like and subscribe if you did like this video, and stay tuned for more. In the meantime, this has been Andrew again with Novus Computers, and thanks for watching.